This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Kathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Late Boomers. I'm Kathy Worthington. Today we have an extra special guest, actor Michael Nouri. Some of you will know him as the star of 1983's film Flashdance, and others will know him from Netflix's The Watcher or Yellowstone, or the assassination of Gianni Versace American Crime Story opposite Ricky Martin and Penelope Cruz, or Steven Spielberg's The Terminal with Tom Hanks and Catherine Zeta-Jones. He continues to work constantly in show business, and I can't wait to hear the inside scoop on his projects. Most recently, he shot FBI Most Wanted.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Michael has also starred in many Broadway shows, including the original production of Victor Victoria with Julie Andrews, the South Pacific National Tour after 9/11, which raised money for the victims of 9/11, Can with Patti LuPone, one of my favorites, and some great television, Damages with Glenn Close, The Slap, NCIS, and so many others. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great
Kathy
to have
and Mary, thank you.
It's
Great
a
to have
pleasure.
Great to be with you.
Such a
I'm
pleasure.
sorry, it's so hot here.
It's hot in Los
Yes.
Angeles.
Yeah.
It is. We're having a good heat wave here. We always ask our guests, Michael, about their backgrounds and how they got started on their career paths. So can you tell us about where you grew up and how you discovered acting?
Sure. Well, I grew up I was born in Washington, D.C., and then my mom and dad, we moved to New York City and then to New Jersey. And I went to high school, a boarding school in Connecticut for boys
Wow.
because I
Mhm.
could not concentrate at a public school in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Too many attractive girls.
Right. So they took you
So,
away from the girls. Sad.
and then I went to Rollins College in Florida and Emerson College in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Great schools.
In 1970, 69 or 70, I had my first job, professional acting job, in a movie called Goodbye Columbus,
Yeah.
Mhm.
starring Ally McGraw. It was her first movie, and Richard Benjamin. And I had a very small role. And I was so nervous in front of the camera that when Larry Pierce asked for action, I had one line to Ally McGraw, and I think it was, "May I have this dance?" And I was so nervous that what came out of my mouth was, "May I have this dance?" Um,
And you could still do it today.
I could still do it today. It took years of therapy to
Oh, God.
get
I'm
rid
sure
of
it did.
Larry Pierce was very tough on me. He said, "Oh, for God's sake, let's do it again." And I finally got it out. I said, may I have this dance?" Many years later, we worked together, and we had a good laugh about that one. So that was my first professional job. My second professional job was on Broadway with Julie Harris in a play called 40 Carats,
Mm-hmm.
which was produced by David Merrick and directed by Abe Burrows. The stage manager was Abe's son, Jimmy Burrows, who is very famous for his many successes on television. And then I did that for 2 years, and then I flew to California to see what I could do in television. And I had an agent, had a wonderful agent um, at an agency called CAA, which CMA, Creative
Oh, yeah.
Management Associates,
Mm-hmm.
which has
Remember
become
that?
CAA.
Mm-hmm.
And took me over to Universal Studios, where I met some people there, and they signed me to a 3-year contract.
Oh, that's when they had the contract players
And when it had
at
contract players,
Universal.
it was like pay or
Yeah.
play, which was really great.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was cast in a wonderful show called The Gangster Chronicles, in
Oh.
which I played Lucky Luciano.
No kidding.
And it was a very successful show. However, we only filmed 13 episodes because we were up against Hill Street Blues.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some, I don't know, complaints about Gangster Chronicles glorifying crime life, which was ridiculous because it was
Well,
just, it's historical.
yeah.
But we lost out to Hill Street Blues. But so I still had the contract, pay or play, at Universal. And I did another series playing Dracula. I can't think of the name of that. Did I tell you that one? Did I give you
No.
that?
No.
No, I don't
I don't
remember the
know
name
that
of it. Anyway, I played Dracula, and I was very excited.
That's a
Huh?
great part.
Yeah, it was
Dracula.
great. It was
Did
great,
you
and I
have
was
like the
very
teeth and the blood and
yes.
Did you have to
blood?
say I am Count Dracula?
It's Count Dracula, yes.
Oh yeah, that's perfect voice for that.
And I was very excited to get that part until I saw the call sheet, which indicated that all of the shooting was to be done at night.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nighttime shooting for about 8 episodes. So
Mm-hmm.
call time at
All
6
night.
p.m.
Very
all night until
difficult.
6
Very
a.m.
difficult. Yeah. Throws your body clock crazy.
Yeah.
It makes you crazy.
Yeah,
But
but that was
Dracula doesn't come out in the daytime.
Of course
no,
not.
no, no.
Was it all over LA? Was it locations around LA or just in the
Yes,
studio?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
All the dark places in LA.
Where would those be?
In dark alleys.
Yeah, dark alleys and basements. um, and then let's see. In '82, uh, I got a script from a wonderful director named Sam Peckinpah,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
and I read it, and I thought, well, the opportunity to work with Sam Peckinpah would be a dream
Mm-hmm.
because he was one of my favorite directors, and he was a great guy. I was living in New York at the time, and they asked me if I would be willing to fly out to Los Angeles at my own expense, which I did. And I met with Sam, and he said, "You don't have to audition for me." He said, "I think you'd be great for this part, and we'll start working in 2 weeks."
Mm-hmm.
I went back to my friend's house where I was staying, and there was a script waiting for me called Flashdance.
Oh.
The Sam Peckinpah movie was called The Osterman Weekend,
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
which I read, and it was interesting. Um, but I read Flashdance, and I much preferred Flashdance. I
Yeah.
had to. I had to. I met with Adrian Lyne. I
Mm.
did not have to audition, but in the waiting room uh, before to go into my meeting were Mickey Rourke and Kevin Costner,
Ha.
and so somehow I just managed to beat them out. I guess because of my Adrian Lyne, the director, uh, thought that it was a better match for me and Jennifer Beals.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
Perfect.
very lucky. And then so here I was in the catbird seat because I had the choice between a 20th Century Fox feature film and a Paramount feature film. So I made the choice to do the lesser known of two projects with a relatively unknown director named Adrian Lyne.
Mm-hmm.
And we started filming about the same time that I would have been working for Peckinpah. So it was a thrill, a real thrill to work on Flashdance. Um, there was no guarantee or assurance that Flashdance would do what it eventually did,
It went
which was
crazy.
it was crazy. In spite of the reviews, which were not favorable,
Hard to
um,
believe.
but what do they know? What do critics know? Bob Zemeckis and the president of Paramount Studios, who was Michael Eisner at the time,
Mm-hmm.
went to a screening of Flashdance before it was released, and they were kind of borderline about it, as was Adrian Lyne, the director. He wasn't 100% convinced that it was going to do well. Zemeckis' wife and Eisner's wife both said, if you do not back this movie and release it, we're going to divorce you because this is
It's
going to be
so much appeals to females.
people are
Definitely.
people are going to see this
Females.
multiple times.
And
Yeah.
the
Oh
film-
yeah, which I did at
yeah,
the time.
And
And
the film,
the cinematography just pops because
Yeah.
of the sweat coming off of her face when she's dancing in the light in back of her. I just rewatched it the other day to remind myself about it. It's still like
Adrian
amazing.
Lyne was a big fan of. He's a wonderful cinematographer, wonderful director, and he liked to use a lot of smoke and colors. And he had these oil barrels that had smoke backlit with red and blues, and
Wow.
the producers did not like it. And they were complaining to Adrian. And Adrian, so whenever the producers were coming around to the set, he would dispense with the oil barrels and the colors and so on. And as soon as they were gone, he would fire it all up again.
I love
He was
it.
a delight. He was an absolute delight to work with. And we had some wonderful actors in the show. Many of them whose names it's been over 40 years, but Kyle Hefner was terrific in it. Lee Ving, who was a rock and roller, was terrific in it. And then we had a young actress who was just out of, she was at her first year at Yale, and she was 17 at the time. She turned 18 while we were filming. And that, of course, was Jennifer Beals. Lilia Scala, who was a wonderful actress, who either won the Oscar for the movie with Sidney Poitier, where she played a Mother Superior. I can't think of the name of the movie, but she was a delight to work with. And I had also worked with her on Broadway in 40 Carats with Julie Harris.
Oh,
No,
that's I have to ask you. Well, first of all, I have to tell you, when I saw Flashdance, I was a dancer. When I saw Flashdance, I had sprained my ankle and I cried through the whole movie because I couldn't move. But I wanted to hear more about your Broadway career too. Tell us about the singing and dancing that you've done on Broadway.
sure.
And some of the shows you began to talk about it, but love to know ones that you really loved and were great experiences for you.
Well, the first one was 40 Carats with Julie Harris, Murray Hamilton. And I did that for a year and a half. Julie did it for about a year. And then they brought in June Allison. And then she was succeeded by Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from the divine the other
to
way.
to the what?
Yeah.
To the devil?
And I loved working with June Allison. I loved working with Zsa Zsa. She was
Oh,
a real trip to work with.
She must have been. Do you have any
but
And
good stories?
women were dropping like flies, but it was always you there with them, huh?
yeah,
It's so fun.
from opening night to the closing night. George Thonder,
Wow.
who was a previous husband of Zsa Zsa's, one of 5 or 6 husbands,
Mm-hmm.
came to see the show. And he said, "My dear boy, I'm going to give you some coaching on how to kiss a woman," because there was a scene where I dipped her and I kissed her. And he demonstrated with Zsa Zsa. And he said, "All right, dear boy, your turn." And I took her and I dipped her and I kissed her and I broke her front tooth.
Oh gosh. Oh
Yeah, it
wow.
was a tip.
So he gave you an F
She-
for your class.
Yeah.
She
Oh
must have
man.
loved that.
So that was 40 Carats. And then the next time I was on stage was in I think Victor Victoria. That's quite a few years later.
Yeah, because you were busy doing TV and
I was
movies.
in TV and living on the West Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did a lot of daytime soap operas. I know that.
Yes, did. I was on Search for Tomorrow for a couple of years. And then along came Victor Victoria. And the way that came about was a fun story. I was doing South Pacific, a production of South Pacific at the Long Beach Civic Light Opera
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in LA.
Yeah,
in LA
Long Beach.
with Sandy Duncan
Oh.
playing Nellie Forbush. And I played Emile Debec. Got to sing Some Enchanted Evening 8
Oh, one
times
of
a
my
week.
favorites.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And one afternoon on a Wednesday, I was picking up some lunch to. It's okay, Charlie. I've got Charlie, my dog, at my feet, and he's hearing something. He might bark. It's okay,
Okay.
Charlie.
It's okay if he barks.
And I was picking up some lunch at a restaurant called Toscana in Brentwood.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to take my lunch down to the performance, to the matinee performance. While picking up my lunch at Toscana, I was approached by a fellow named Tony Adams, who was the partner of Blake Edwards, and he approached me and he introduced himself and he said, "Have you ever met Blake Edwards?" And I said, "No, but I'm a huge fan." And he said, "Come with me. I want to introduce you to him." And Blake was sitting there at a table by himself. And we shook hands. And he asked me, he said, "Do you sing?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I do. I'm doing a production of South Pacific right now in Long Beach." He said, do you sing?" And I said, quoting one of Peter Sellers' great lines from Pink Panther, he said, "Do you sing?" And I said, "Does your dog bite?"
I bet he loved that.
And he loved that.
Oh,
And he
sure.
said, "We are going to do Victor Victoria. Have you seen the movie?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I've seen it. And I've seen every Pink Panther movie at least twice."
Mhm.
And he said, "Would you be willing to sing for us and audition for us?" And I said, "Absolutely. But if I might suggest and invite you to see me in this production of South Pacific with Sandy Duncan, um, might you consider that?" He said yes. So
I love it.
a couple of days later, I got a message that Blake and Julie and Tony Adams were going to. No, Tony was not there. It was just Julie and Blake came to
And for
see.
those of our listeners that don't realize that Blake Edwards was married to Julie Andrews.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that may not know that little piece.
Right. And
Yes.
and directed all the Pink
And-
Panther movies.
Yeah.
Directed all the Pink
and
Panther
directed-
movies, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Victor Victoria,
Mhm.
many, many other things.
Right.
So the final curtain came down. I went backstage, and who was there but Blake Edwards and Julie Andrews?
Mhm.
And I thought for sure they would probably leave after the first act, but they stayed for the entire show, came backstage, and Blake came, and of course the cast were just beside themselves. Sandy
Oh.
Dunn,
I
everybody
imagine.
meeting Julie Andrews and Blake Edwards. They were just over the moon. And Blake approached me, put his hand out, and he said, "Let's go to Broadway."
Woohoo!
Isn't
That's
that
great.
just the perfect story about timing and
Yes.
and making your own luck and everything coming together for you like that?
Yes.
And getting to invite him directly? Because he
Yeah.
couldn't say no in Toscana. He couldn't say, no, I won't come. I love that.
Had I not stopped off to get lunch that day,
Yeah.
it never would have happened. Probably might not have ever happened.
I'm glad you were,
Serendipity.
and you were craving a real upscale lunch that day, which was really
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
That's really great.
I have to ask you something so off the wall since we're talking about serendipity and things just happening. Have you ever seen your name in a trivia question or a crossword puzzle or
Yes.
on Jeopardy? Oh,
and a
tell us.
crossword puzzle quite a few times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was Flashdance related.
Oh, okay. But then your name is the
Michael
answer?
Flashdance.
They wanted to know, they gave the name of your character or your name and said, who did he
No,
play?
just Michael blank Flashdance with a with a five letter, 5 across.
How fun.
I
That
love
must
it.
have been a thrill.
That's fantastic. Let's talk more about some Broadway. I want to hear about Can Can.
Yeah.
What that was like. I don't know that show. Unfortunately, I haven't seen that show. Has it ever been revived?
It's you would know the song I Love Paris.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And did you sing that?
Patti LuPone sang it.
Oh,
it's for the girl to sing, right?
I want to get my facts straight. Let's see. Before that, I did a production of, what was it, at Sundance for Robert Redford, and I can't think of the name of that show, but it was a musical, and that was followed by the City Center production of Can Can with Patti LuPone, and working with her was a dream come true.
She's a pro.
She is a force of nature. She's an extraordinary talent and a wonderful, wonderful woman. And at one of the performances, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward were there because they were benefactors of City Center. And the curtain came down, and we all went to our dressing rooms. And I was standing outside of Patty's dressing room when I saw Paul Newman bounding up the stairs like a teenager. And he came right over to me before I had a chance to get nervous or shy. And he put his arms around me and he said, "You had a lot of fun out there, didn't you?" And I said, "Would you like to dance?"
Of course you did.
I love that.
Of course you said that. Oh my
What
gosh.
else did you say to Paul Newman when he was hugging you?
Yeah.
And how long did Can Can run then with you in it?
I think only about 2 weeks.
What did you say?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Oh.
That's not much. That's why. Maybe
two or
I
three.
don't know. Maybe that's why I don't know that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't probably do a cast album, did they?
I'm hoping I'm getting the right play. It may not be. We can all look it up and see.
We can all.
And our audience can look it up too. It'll be a
Yeah.
game for them.
Patti LuPone and Michael Nouri, City Center, New York.
Yeah, and I had another question about plays because I saw on your website that you played Rodin opposite Linda Eder in Camille Claudel, and
Yeah.
my late husband Ken Cragen managed Linda for a while
Oh,
when she was doing most of the musicals with Frank Wildhorn on Broadway.
yes.
And
Right.
so I wanted to hear a little bit about playing Rodin and working with Linda.
Working with Linda was wonderful. What a gifted actress she is, and a gorgeous voice. Um,
Yes.
Frank Wildhorn wrote the musical or the music,
Mhm.
and I played Rodin, which was great fun. I got to do a lot of research for the role. Linda played Camille Claudel,
Mhm.
his um, his muse,
Mhm.
and I learned that in the course of doing some research, I found out that Camille Claudel, uh, her beautiful sculptures were eh, many of the beautiful sculptures that Camille Claudel created were signed by Rodin. So he took credit
It's
for
just terrible.
Yes,
many of works of
Yeah,
art.
that is
like
so true.
forget about the woman being brilliant. I know
Yeah.
there's a very, very good exhibit right now at the Getty
Yeah.
in Los Angeles for everybody that isn't here. So if you haven't seen it, you should go see it because it totally explains about which ones are hers, and it's a really fabulous exhibit of her work.
Hmm.
Of course, he's mentioned all through it. And she kind of went crazy late in life and stuff.
Yes.
It's very, very interesting.
Yes.
Very good exhibit.
So it's an exhibit of Rodin.
No, Claudel.
Camille
Claudel.
Claudel.
It's
Okay.
Camille Claudel, and it's
Okay.
all the banners are
Yeah.
Camille.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
his work; it's her work.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
You have to check that out.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that was called Camille Claudel, and we did that in
Mhm.
Connecticut one summer, many summers ago.
Mhm.
What else have I done on stage?
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
not.
I have a whole list of your bio, all single spaced. It takes up several pages,
Oh, okay.
Well,
All right.
which is kind of exciting. What about your TV? What would you say your favorite role is or has been on TV? And tell us about that and
Well,
why.
certainly playing Lucky Luciano in the Gangster
Ah,
Chronicles over at Paramount
mhm.
was wonderful because we had an amazing cast of characters, most of whom had last names that ended in a vowel because they were all Italian,
Oh, okay.
except for, let's see, I can't think of her name, Madeline Stowe, who went on
Oh,
to have a nice
yeah,
film,
she did.
and,
She had a big career.
and Brian Benben, who became her husband. Um, and yeah, that was a wonderful 13 episodes, as I mentioned before. So that was one of my favorites. Another one of my very favorites was playing the head of Mossad on
oh,
NBC and on NCIS,
ah,
and that was playing Eli David. I had to learn a little bit of. Well, I had to speak with an Israeli accent. That took some work.
Hmm.
But that was a wonderful experience. I
I
loved
think I
work.
saw that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
sure.
think so. It was
Mhm.
well, I was a huge fan of NCIS, so
I would. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And a good friend of mine, a neighbor, was a showrunner for them and a writer, exec producer. So that
Hmm.
was George Schenk. I don't know if you remember George Schenk, but he was
Yeah.
Yep.
doing a lot of those shows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And as I said, I recently rewatched Flashdance because I wanted to go back to it and
Hmm.
see the era of the 80s because it was so groundbreaking. Because Flashdance was done basically before MTV came with the music videos. And it was kind of like a roadmap for the music videos, I feel like. But did you consider that Flashdance was a big breakthrough for you? Did it shift everything? Did you feel more opportunities that came from that?
Well, I'll tell you, um, it was huge. The response to it was huge, and it took me around the world doing press,
Mm.
Wow.
which really wonderful. And I was newly married to my agent, Vicky Light.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So the two of us traveled pretty much around the world to Japan and England, uh,
So
promoting the movie.
exciting.
A
Yeah,
nice
it was.
honeymoon.
Yeah, when you're part of a show that is that successful, it's really exciting. Um, I'm sorry, did
And
you ask me a
and that
question?
yeah, if did it it sounds like it opened
Oh,
up the world, but did it open up new did all of a sudden did you all of a sudden get more scripts, more phone calls, more
yes,
offers?
yes.
Yeah.
I was offered a movie by Billy Friedkin, who is another one of my favorite directors, to do a movie at 20th Century Fox, starring Barbara Hershey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and um, let's see what happened. Before we started production on that, 20th Century Fox went into what's called, well, it changed leadership. And I think it went to, from whoever it was before, to Barry Diller.
Mm.
And in the transition, um, the Friedkin movie was put on the shelf. It
Oh.
wasn't going to happen. So it went from a very promising segue into another A movie with an A director
Mm-hmm.
to it not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, I had an agent at the time named uh, Ron Rifkin, uh, who was a pretty powerful agent at the time. And he called me up. I was in Japan at the time doing promotion for Flashdance. And I got a phone call from him saying that he got a call from a writer named Stephen Bochco,
Mm.
who was doing a TV series called Bay City Blues
Mm-hmm.
and offering me the lead in Bay City Blues, which was going to be a um, minor league baseball version of Hill Street Blues. I did that. I did Bay City Blues, which was a really fun experience. And there was an unknown actress named Sharon Stone who was
Oh.
one of the actresses in it. And there again, I was kind of the star of short-lived series because that one only lasted for 13 episodes.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after that, I think that was followed by um, maybe another play or another series. I don't remember.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have to ask you about Vietnam because we're all boomers, and I was wondering if it impacted your experience. Obviously, it must have impacted your life. What about your acting and the people around you?
Sure. Yeah. I enlisted in the Army Reserves
Oh.
while I was at school in Boston. Um, and I reported for duty in the reserves in Boston. And I never had, thank God, I didn't have to go to Vietnam.
Mm.
And so I served my time in the reserves, and that was it. And I got an honorable discharge without having to go to Vietnam.
Oh,
Did you perform in any of the services?
No, no, I did not.
you weren't
No,
acting yet at that time, were you? Or were you acting
uh,
in
mm,
college?
no, I was not, because that was in '67,
Mm.
pretty much at the height of the Vietnam War. One fun factoid is that they could not outfit me. I had my uniform um, up to code, and I was wearing sneakers, high top sneakers, because they could not provide me with combat boots in my size. I wear a size 15 shoe,
You're
Oh,
tall.
and I'm
yeah.
tall, and I have big feet.
I
So,
can't
15.
believe they didn't account for that.
so that's my military story.
Well, tell us about changing the subject a little bit. You work with a lot of charities, and you've mentored several people. Can you talk about that?
Yes, sure. Um, I have been an ambassador for the Multiple Sclerosis Society because I have a family member who has MS, um, and that has been a great pleasure for me to be and an honor to be an ambassador for that. Also, I have participated in um, calling attention to ALS,
Mm.
my amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and that came about as a result of playing a wonderful person named Charlie Wiedemeyer, who was an All-American football player at University of Michigan. He came down with ALS in his later in his career
Mhm.
of a football career, um, and he lost um, all mobility. He was basically a quadriplegic, but because of his faith in Jesus and God, he managed to outlive the expectations uh, that were given to him by many
Mm.
years. I spent a lot of time with him and his family. Charlie could not speak when I met him. He would communicate by raising his upper lip and by blinking.
Mhm.
Oh,
And I will be darned if I did not get to a point where I could understand him and the way that he
Oh,
communicated,
that's
the way that
fabulous.
he his wife, his children, and his caregivers. And I that taught me that communication is 90% intention and maybe 10% of what we hear. Very little of all communication is what's being said or what's being heard. If our intention is to really understand somebody, we can surmount all of the obstacles. He was
mm.
a great inspiration to me, as was his wife and his kids. One of the most courageous, inspiring people I have met in my lifetime.
Mm.
Another such courageous person is Vicky Light, who is my agent and my wife, who has MS, and she is. I don't know anybody who is more positive and inspiring than Vicky.
Mm.
Uh, and we communicate every day. We're no longer married, but we communicate every single day. And every
And full
day I ask,
disclosure, she was my agent too.
"Oh, she was your agent too." That's
Yeah,
right.
when at the time when Flashdance came out, she was my agent
That's right.
then. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every day I'll call her and I say, "How are you doing?" And she says, "I'm great."
Oh, I
I
love
know.
that.
I love to
Yeah.
hear that.
She's amazing.
She's so
Mm,
fabulous.
Yeah.
mm.
So
She's
those are the
fantastic.
charities that I have been involved with.
But I
Uh,
know you mentor some inner city kids sometimes. I don't know if you're still involved with that, but give us a little insight into how do you do that, or how they ask you about acting and things like that, right?
well, it was I taught um, an acting class before COVID
Oh,
in Santa Monica, which was largely young actors who were just starting out,
hmm,
and that was a fun experience because we don't at this age um, one does not really think in terms of all of the experiences we've had and the value that those experiences can be to young people. Um,
hmm,
and I
True.
had the opportunity to, in the course of teaching, I realized that I have a wealth of information to share with young people, and
beautiful.
so um, that was a fun experience. Unfortunately, it came to an end when COVID
Uh-uh.
uh,
Uh,
hit us. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Well, let's talk about meditation a little bit. I'm a meditator, and I know you are. And
mhm,
you talk about it on your website, which is a very interesting little clip video. If anybody goes to the website, check it out. But
mhm.
tell us about the background, how that came to be, and how you learned about it.
Sure. 1969, 1970. Yeah, 1970. I was at a point in my life where I was asking probably the most significant question any one of us can ask ourselves is, why am I here?
mm.
And I had to know what that was. Nothing else made more sense than finding the answer to why am I here? So I started reading um, a lot of literature by Krishnamurti, uh, autobiography of a yogi, um, and Ram Dass, Be Here Now.
Mm.
Um, and I was very, very thirsty for a spiritual experience. Although I did not label it a spiritual experience, I just really wanted to know why I was here on the planet. My younger brother, his name is Guy, had been initiated by this young meditation teacher named Prem. His name is Prem now. Back there in those days, his name was Maharaji,
Oh.
and he was 13 years old.
Oh.
13. So my brother invited me to
Mm.
join him at a meeting or two, and he invited me to a program that Prem was having at um, where was it? Barnard College in New York. And so my brother and my mother and I went to see Prem, this 13-year-old guru,
Oh,
and he talked for about 45 minutes or an hour. He had a very thick Indian accent.
mhm.
But one thing that he said that really caught my attention, he said, I don't promise to fix your relationships or your work situation, but I do promise one thing. If what you are looking for is peace of mind, I promise you I can show you how to have peace of mind.
And he's 13.
13,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whew.
He had inherited this position from his father, who was the teacher before he was. Um, and he bequeathed that position to his youngest son, Prem. So I thought, wow, that's what I want. I want peace of mind. That's more important than anything else. Uh, so um, I heard that there was an opportunity to be initiated in Washington, D.C. by one of his teachers. So I went to Washington, D.C., and I listened to his teachers talking about, and his other students talk about this wonderful experience and this wonderful teacher. And at this time, I was so thirsty for this experience that nothing was going to take me away from Washington, D.C. until I had this experience.
Mm.
So it was on a Sunday, I believe, in a Quaker meeting house where I was shown the techniques of meditation, which I have been practicing for now 53 years, pretty much on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I still go to see Prem whenever I have an opportunity because he's traveling around the world. He is on the road or in the air, I'd say 40 weeks out of the year, he's traveling to get his message to people.
Does he still live in India?
No, he lives in Malibu.
Oh, really? Well, good. We can
He lives
go
in
and connect with
Malibu.
him.
He lives in Malibu
Yeah.
with his wife and his four. He's got 4 kids. 2 or 3 of them, 2 of them are married and have kids, and he is now a grandfather.
Oh, my goodness.
Mhm.
From
And
13,
he's
you've
still
known him that long.
Fabulous.
You're like family.
studying. What's that?
You're like family to him if you've known him that long.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's like family to me.
Yeah. Talking about family, I just have to change the subject again. I know you're a dog person, and Kathy and I are both dog people. And tell us about your dog Charlie. Maybe you can show us. And because my last dog that I had, my golden retriever, was named Charlie Chew. So I have a special place in my heart for him. And I'm now looking at my new golden retriever on the floor, Captain, who just came to visit.
What is this? What is his name?
This is Captain.
Captain.
I don't want him to jump up because he'll type for me on the keys of my computer.
Okay. All right.
But tell us about Charlie.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll tell you that I had a golden retriever named Chauncey.
Oh.
Named after Chauncey Gardner and Being There.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I had
did he like to watch?
He'd love to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I had Chauncey for 13 years.
Mm.
He was the love of my life.
Yeah.
And then I had a dog. I went for a couple of years without a dog. And then I rescued a dog named Izzy. I named him Izzy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a cockapoo, a sweet little guy. And he was about 8 when I got him, and he lived to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went without a dog until I found Charlie at a shelter in downtown LA. And I was on a movie set downtown that was next to a shelter. And I just, during a lunch break, went over to the shelter and started looking at all of these. It breaks your heart. I know if you've ever been to a shelter, it just breaks your heart.
Yes.
You want to take them all home.
Yeah.
And
you do.
So I was walking past this one cage, and I was on my way out when I saw this little face pop up between 2 Labradors. And it was Charlie's little face, and he was only 2 months old.
Oh.
And he looked right at me, and then he came down and came right over to the cage where I was standing. And I got down on my knees, and I looked at him, and he looked right into my eyes. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking right into me. And it was as if he was saying, "You're my human."
Yeah.
And I said, "You're my dog."
Yeah.
And so days later, I took him home.
Oh.
And that's Charlie. And
beautiful.
that was almost 9 years ago.
What kind of dog is he?
He is a wire-haired terrier mix. He
Mm-hmm.
weighs 25 pounds. And he's
a little guy.
He's the love of my life.
I get it.
Well, Michael, what's coming up next for you? And also, what's on your bucket list?
What's coming up for me is anybody's guess, because between
Okay.
COVID and the actors' strike,
Oh,
it
Yeah.
yeah.
has brought the business to a screeching halt,
hmm
and all production, with the exception of, with very few exceptions, has stopped temporarily until the fall or the winter.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
Um, most recently, I did an episode, as you mentioned, of FBI, FBI Most Wanted
hmm
in New York. Uh, and during COVID, I worked on a wonderful independent movie with Holly Hunter, who is a wonderful actress.
Yeah.
I loved working with her. And trying to think of the
Has it
name.
come out? Has it come out yet? The movie?
No, no.
Oh.
And I can't think of the name of the movie.
Do you
Sorry.
know?
Yeah.
Do you know
That's
when it's
okay.
coming out?
What?
You know when it's coming out?
No, I don't.
Soon.
Yeah,
I
they
don't.
don't tell you. They don't
Yeah.
tell you. But what's on your bucket list then? What are you dreaming about?
What am I dreaming about? My next job.
Ah,
Oh, nothing. But what about like travel or anything like that? Are you
Yeah.
dying to do a job in an exotic location or something like that? Or do you want to, you ever travel
Well,
for
3
pleasure?
years ago, I was being paid to be in Rome for 2 months,
Ah,
working on a series with Patrick Dempsey,
mm.
which was great fun. And being paid to be in Rome was
oh, I love it.
What a
joy.
tough assignment.
I know.
That's
Per diem-
hard. I
Getting
love
per
Rome.
diems and salary and all of that
Yeah.
was wonderful. I would love to go back to Europe and work again. I love being in Europe, especially especially Italy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So my bucket list would be, as I said, really just to get back to work again.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
It has been a dream of mine to play Zorba, do Zorba the Greek,
Oh,
on stage,
Oh,
a
yeah.
musical, which was last done on Broadway by Anthony Quinn many years ago, about 40 years ago,
With the music as
with
a
a music.
musical. Okay.
Yeah.
mm. Oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe
So that
someone
would,
who's listening to the podcast will say, "Great idea. I'm going to cast him. Let's do it again."
oh, great.
Somebody
Yeah,
has
you
to
never
bring the
know.
money. Bring the money.
Yeah,
Bring the
exactly.
money.
So, Michael, is
Yep.
there anything else you'd like to talk about or let people know about you as a takeaway today?
Um, let's see. Um, my life with Charlie is wonderful. I took him with me to Montana to
Mm.
film Yellowstone,
hmm
um, which was a wonderful experience. Working with Kelly Riley, who is one of my favorite actors, and working with Taylor Sheridan, who created the series and has created so many other things. I remember for several months, or for maybe as long as 1 year, every show that was on every series was a Taylor Sheridan show.
Oh,
Oh.
So many series on at the same time. Um, so Yellowstone was one of my favorite projects in the last 2 years, 3 years now because of COVID.
hmm
Um, and what else? Um, I'm very happy to and blessed to have wonderful friends in my life. One of my favorite people is Vicky Light, who continues to inspire me on a daily basis.
yeah.
Um, I lost my mom and dad about 10 years ago, but I have a sister and a brother who live in New York, and we are all very close. And I'm going back to New York to see them in 2 weeks,
Mm.
and I'm very excited about that. Except for the weather in New York, which is very hot and humid.
Yeah, it's
Maybe it'll
summer.
Not
calm down by the time you get there.
Maybe
that would be lovely.
but that would
Very
be
Yeah, but
lovely.
you're talking about August or whatever, so
Yeah.
it sounds.
Yeah.
But you're a
formidable.
very, very lucky man to have such a great family and be so inspired by the people that you love.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Michael, for being on Late Boomers. Our guest today on Late Boomers has been the great film, television, and stage actor, Michael Nouri. You can learn more about Michael on his website, michaelnouri.com. And that's, if you don't know how to spell it, MichaelNouri. Thanks again.
And we want to thank our listeners for subscribing to our podcast and for checking us out on YouTube. And for sure, watch this one. If you're just walking around listening to this, go back and watch YouTube so you can see Michael. And check us out on YouTube. And recommend this to your friends. We appreciate you. We want to hear about your experiences with Late Boomers and what gets you inspired. We are on Instagram at I am Kathy Worthington and at I am Mary Elkins and at Late Boomers. Thank you for listening, and thanks again so much, Michael.
Kathy and Mary, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed meeting you, seeing you both, and being part of your wonderful podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at lateboomers.biz. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.